Okay, so welcome to our final video for games design at the University of Southampton, COMP3218. My name's Dave Millard. I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with
Max. I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
And I'm Tom. I'm another lecturer on the course.
So we've got a few games to go through in this batch, but before we start, Tom, do you want to say a little bit about what we asked the students to do?
So this coursework was all about innovation in game design. So we asked the students to produce yet another game prototype, this time incorporating one of 4 innovations, either procedurally generated content, some sort of novel interface, a location-aware system, or some form of adaptivity in their game.
Right, okay, so I think all of these are WebGL builds, so let's have a look at the first one. Come up.
This first game we've got is this Death is Inevitable.
Death is Inevitable. Right, okay, I'm wondering...
So we've got shoot, shield, and...
So it looks like it's okay in
That's
terms of...
going to be hard to put on a Mac.
Press space to start. Shoot, move, shield. Oh, okay. Right.
So I'll be honest, I spent a lot of playing this game in the expo and just ignoring the shield. So I think you're probably just fine with move and shoot.
Okay, here we go. Oh, I like that.
So we've got some really nice effects. So one of the things I really, really like about this game is the enemy design. So you've got a number of different enemies. They've got a number of different sort of hit points. Okay, so this is where the shield comes in useful. So basically each enemy has a sort of core section that you need to destroy, but they also have like these different attacks.
Oops. Yeah, that's the only big problem with... That's nice. Failure detected.
So this is the thing. There isn't like a live system. There's sort of a time limit, and the idea is to get the highest score in the shortest time, or rather in the time limit. But every time you die, you just respawn again with, I think, half health, and it adjusts the difficulty at that point.
Can you ever get health back?
So you're right about the enemy design. That's really nice, that little shield going on. It looks great. Simple, but really effective graphics. Oops. Okay, there's my... Where's my mouse gone? There we are. So I think it would help us a lot if I went full screen. But I don't seem to be able to do that. I love that visceral shaking. That's great.
Like even just like the particle effects of the explosions do look really, really nice.
Yes.
I'm a little bit sad that you can't destroy them as they're spawning in like this.
But yeah, enemy design is nice. They've got kind of
because it feels like, again, that would be yet another one of these things that you can sort of model in your adaptivity engine. Like if the player is, this enemy is really interesting. Next time you see a purple one,
let it go.
Let it go just for a little bit.
There's 2, so.
Because that's just a really interesting kind of enemy.
Ugh.
Oh my god, this is weird.
Failure.
Spawned on top of you.
Alright, next time you say, let that enemy stand there.
Yeah,
it's very satisfying as well.
Like it's really nice that they all have sort of, like, not just different types of attack, or like different amounts of damage, but totally different behaviours.
Yeah.
So if you walk into that, you die?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So that's how it gets you.
Pops into adjusting power.
So you have more health now?
So I think that might be what how it adapts. So if it thinks you're struggling, it spawns you with more health. It also changes your attack power and your shield power as well, I guess. So attack power, shield regeneration, and maximum health and things that adapt based on the difficulty.
So
They can't give you any more than full health and full shield.
So is the health and shield basically the measure of difficulty? Because we asked them to make sure that we had something on screen which was kind of...
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, I think the way they do it is they actually tie each of those 3 things to a different thing that they're modelling, which is great, makes it a really interesting adaptive system. So I'm sort of flicking through their game notes, and they put in the formulas for all of the things they're tracking, which means it'll take me a second to parse it. But for example, the bullet damage, Your new bullet damage when you respawn is based on your old bullet damage, plus the number of enemies on screen when you died.
Right.
And the shield regeneration rate, again, is based on your previous shield regeneration rate, but then is mapped to the time that it took you to die and the length of time you've been playing.
Okay. It's nice. Scoring. How am I kind of figure out is it just where I am?
There's
So
levels.
round 2.
So I don't think there are rounds. I think it's a case of just... So I think there is... This may be... so they said they had some problems with the build that they submitted. So it sort of crashed an hour before and they lost an hour's worth of work.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think just displaying the score on the screen was one of the things that they lost. But there
That's
was...
a shame.
So when I saw it in the expo, there was like a sort of your score in the top left that just sort of went up. And the idea is you have a fixed amount of time to play the game. So you have to get the highest score you possibly can.
Okay. So perhaps if I don't horribly die.
But that's my
failure,
point. It doesn't
so-
matter because you've still got that fixed time. It just sort of changes the stats based on that. The interesting thing is
Okay.
how it affects the score. So obviously we can't see it on right now. So let me
So
sift
have I actually got to an end? Because I keep... Okay, so I've just died again. But have I actually got to the point of getting to that end state yet? Have
So
I been playing
there
for
are
long
apparently
enough?
8 rounds.
Yep.
So I don't know if we've seen all 8 of them yet.
Nope, I keep getting creamed, that's why. Oh, okay.
Apparently in playtesting, most players died 2 to 4 times.
Right.
I don't know if that's per round or through the entire game.
Well, when it was only a couple of them, I'd have thought that was fine. But it's spawning an
Basically,
awful lot here.
Your attack power and your shield power and your health are basically all maxed out.
Maxed
right
out. But there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Right? I kind of... That's what
That's
I'm
that you're now utilising all of those things.
It just gets a bit too laggy.
Yeah.
That's
So again,
because of the recording. But there's just too many... So why are there so many enemies? What round am I on here?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure I've only seen it go to round 2.
That's what I thought, but there's... Oh, okay, that wasn't particularly clever. But there's... I just thought, look, there's hundreds of them.
Apparently, the adaptive engine also records the enemy types the player killed the most.
So
it
there's a lot
doesn't-
of nuance going on.
So it doesn't say what that affects.
It would be good if
Sure,
the
yeah,
laser
yeah.
beam one actually destroyed other ones.
Yeah.
But that's just...
So something's going on. When I started playing this, it was a lot easier. And now it's spawning enemies like absolute mad.
And that's the thing. I don't think it necessarily makes the rest of the game easier when you die. It just makes you more powerful.
Yeah. Which is fine, but
Which is good, 'cause
I
it still
think
keeps
I'm
up that.
And I think I'm in round 2. That's what I'm not understanding. And also, it says I've got a limited amount of time to play the game.
Well, so it doesn't say that. That's me remembering something they said
Okay.
to me in the expo.
Because at this rate, it just looks like I'm going back in and playing.
I feel like they
again
need
and
to
again.
lay off the particle effects when it gets that busy.
I think it'll probably be okay. I mean, we're recording. We're doing a HD recording, basically.
Yeah, so it played fine in the expo. It's always slightly laggier just in terms of the recording, but it's something we take into account. And actually, even then, it's sort of still handling quite well.
It is, yeah. It's not too bad, really.
So actually, so in terms of quality and stuff, I think it's really nicely polished. Like the
It
particle
is.
effects look great. They sort of.
It's a bit of a shame there's no sound effects.
Hang on a minute. If we actually got the sound on.
Yeah, it was down low, but I'm not hearing anything. So I think that's a little bit of a shame, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. It looks great. I think their use of one of the things we say is we're not after the quality of the assets, we're after consistency of look and feel and the way it's presented. And this absolutely succeeds in spades on it. It looks fantastic.
That's it. So I mentioned it at the start, and I'll mention it again. The enemy design's fantastic. The fact they each have different
Yes.
behaviours, so they each
Yeah.
require sort of.
Yeah, they're almost like little mini bosses, each one of them.
Yeah.
They've got kind of weapons pods they're using to fire at you. They've got some of them have got shields you have to break through. They've got that sort of creeping one that comes across the screen. All of those are really good. And actually, it's quite, although it's got really tough to play at this point. So we swapped over with Max. So do you want to reload it and see and go from the beginning? Let's see if you have a perceptibly different score. Because it feels to me like, from what you just said, Tom, was that they kind of, in the hand-in, they've lost some of the structure around the game.
It seems to be, yes.
So, oh, you've got a full screen there.
Nope.
It's not helping. Okay, just go with that, I guess. But at the beginning, this is substantially easier than what we were just playing a minute ago. And it's not quite clear to me why that is. But,
So they talk about, they're very explicit about how dying affects the shield, the damage, and the health of the player, but they don't really talk about the spawn rates.
So I think the quality is clearly really good. I think not just the look and feel, but also the actual design of it, the kind of the simple mechanics you've got, the shooting and the shield, the enemy design. So it's very playable. It's yeah.
So here's the, it's definitely taking you longer to defeat these ones than it does the previous ones.
But
so
there's
that's
definitely fewer of them.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think so. The actual sort of, I think the spawn rate, if I had to guess, I'd say it looks like there is a sort of linear increase in difficulty. Sort of,
With spawn.
the further you go, the more stuff spawns in, which means if you're a highly skilled player, it becomes very quick. So, as a highly skilled player, you're dying less, which makes it very hard to sort of beat later levels. So there's almost a knack to knowing when is a good time to die to get that sort of power-up boost.
Yes, I think we're missing some of the framing here. So we're going into it, and it's not clear to me when you actually finish, what your score is, when your score resets to 0. It sounds like some of those bits were lost, which is a real shame, because it kind of makes it actually quite hard to figure out what's going on in terms of the...
So they did say maybe they'd submit another build sort of after that. So I don't know if they have handed one of those in. Maybe we'll sort of check after this.
We'll check at it, and we'll see if that helps us understand exactly what's going on. But in terms of that, so in terms of the adaptation, then, it sounds like.
So dying very clearly has an impact on the stats of the player.
Yeah.
Which is good. So we can obviously see the impact that's having. The question is, how meaningful is it?
Yeah.
I just don't feel like I'm progressing.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's again probably because of sort of the structure issue.
But if I saw round 1, I haven't seen round 2, and I feel like I'm just dying.
No, you definitely got a round 1 complete.
Yeah.
You're on round 2 now, this is what happened to me. So I completed round 1, I went to round 2, and I just kept playing and dying and playing and dying and playing and dying, and it felt like it was getting harder
within the level.
Because I was getting more and more spawns. I was getting 4 or 5 things spawning on screen at once. But I didn't feel like I was progressing, and I wasn't quite sure why that was.
So they do talk about the difficulty changing between rounds, and that's the thing. So it might just be a case of we're not getting those messages that you've swapped round.
Could be. Oh, round 2 complete. There you go.
Or maybe there is a set number of enemies that you have to beat.
So there you go. So this is a bit more like it was. There you go. That's the sort of spawn rate I was having before, I think. So maybe I got to round 3 without noticing.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're routinely killed by a particular enemy, apparently they spawn less of that enemy in the next round.
Okay. So I think in terms of the adaptive engine, in terms of fulfilling the brief, so they're monitoring multiple things and then using those to adapt on multiple things as well, right? So they're basically sensitive to your gameplay style, which is ultimately what you want the adaptive engine to be doing. And then when it comes to the meaningfulness, how meaningful is it to do this? Well, I think if the score is linked to kind of the number of enemies you're defeating and how weak you are when you are defeating them, then I think that is, clearly that is meaningful. But it's hard to tell that without the framing. I think we're going to have to go and have a little look.
I think that's the really key thing. It's if you get a higher score for defeating an enemy when you're weaker.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what's the incentive not to die over and over again just to get superpowered as fast as possible?
Yes. And again, there is a slight disconnect, isn't there? That in a lot of these games, one of the things which demonstrates your progress is how powerful you become. So there is a problem with kind of making the player weaker.
So on the one hand, it's nice that we can see all these different enemy types in one go. One of the real tricks is, particularly in a lot of these adaptive difficulty games, to sort of compensate for things or to increase the challenge, the enemies sort of get harder, but sort of to give the player a chance, their weapons get more powerful, so it just feels very static. So you almost want a sort of thing where you have like smaller versions of these enemies at the start that are weaker, and then later you get massive ones of them, but still the smaller ones as well, so you have that sort of sense of, okay, I'm now completely destroying these tiny ones.
I can deal with these very easily. I have progressed.
So you still get that sense of like becoming better and being a real badass by destroying all of the little enemies, but then the big ones still pose that challenge.
Yeah.
I think it just gets too busy, and I'm just getting so much stuff spawn, it just ends up spawning on me, and I die. And then sometimes these red blobs don't disappear. Like that one's going to stay there forever now. But it doesn't do anything, and it makes me think that could have been one that was...
So I think what we have here is we have a game that has enormous potential and has quite a sophisticated adaptive kind of engine inside it. But we have a problem in that we are missing some of the framing of this. We don't know what our score is. We're not quite sure what the level progression is. I mean, that's making it very difficult to understand exactly what's going on. But it's also making it difficult to figure out exactly how meaningful some of the adaptation is. Okay.
Should we move on?
I think we should. I almost wish we could say, here's another week, and see what you can do with it, because it feels like it is almost there. But as it is, it's quite difficult to see exactly how the game is behaving. Okay, let's move on. On to our next game. So this one, I think is called Hooked. There you go.
So I think I saw this one in the expo.
We've got some sound straight away.
And from what I remember, this is also a sort of a quite bullet hellish kind of shooter. Dolphin. Southampton Dolphin. So yeah, this was another one of the ones that was sort of demoed to us with a controller.
Right.
And I think it would control sort of a little bit more smoothly with an analog stick than arrow keys, but it's still fine.
Yep.
So you can dash through enemies to kill them.
Space to dash.
Music's quite nice. Like, it definitely fits the sort of like.
So you've got kind of like a charge attack. Oh, that's quite fun.
And you also have limited energy up there in the top left, so you can only charge when you've got energy.
I got you. It's a little bit hard to see, I think, when you're playing, isn't it? I quite like these guys. Some of these have kind of framed the adaptive difficulty in some sort of way. That's quite cute.
So also each of the enemies has distinctive behaviour, so some of them shoot at you, some of them patrol, some of them chase after you, I think.
Yep.
Which is, again, kind of nice. I don't know how much... Oh yeah, the other thing is you can bash into enemies without dashing, which damages you, but does move them around.
Oh, a bit of a bug.
Slight bug.
Yeah.
Alright, let's reload that and try again.
Okay, so you've got different type of enemies, you've got the dash attack, you've got some obstacles in the environment. It's not sure what...
I'm not really sure, because the purple ones I sent...
Have a look at the... Do we do the controls, or...?
Useful. Use hunter power. Hunter.
Yeah,
That's your dash.
Oh, why call it that? Hunter power.
So you've got
So
your multiplier stacking up as you manage to hit enemies without being hit. Storm. So it talks about at higher difficulties, enemies are smarter.
See, I keep not getting hit, and I'm pretty sure I'm dashing into those ones. And they shoot as well.
So again, they frame this use of a controller as a novel interface, and a controller is not a novel interface.
No.
They've been around for like pushing 40 years. So I mean, for sure, a controller is absolutely a very good way to play this game because it keeps the movement smooth, but it's not novel.
So I presume the main thing here is
the main thing is the
difficulty?
adaptivity. So
so how does the adaptivity work then?
so they've got the difficulty value between 1 and 10, which is there in the bottom left.
Yep, so about halfway there, 5.
So this increases by I think 0.05 every second.
Right, okay.
So every 30 seconds it gets 1 difficulty harder.
So it's like a built-in linear difficulty.
Each kill against a certain enemy type makes that enemy type harder. So each kill increases the difficulty value, I think. So they've called their enemies Eldar, Tyranids, and Necron.
Okay.
So I couldn't possibly imagine where they got those names from.
Yeah.
However, I'm not sure which one is which. But one of them is considered harder because it adds more difficulty, is all I can tell you. And the number of kills every 20 seconds checks to see if the value is 10% of the number of enemies that are spawned. So basically, they spawn a bunch of enemies sort of in waves,
Got you.
and if you kill at least 10% of that wave, or rather, if you haven't managed to kill 10% of that wave, the game becomes easier.
Which is literally a sitting duck then.
I lose lives, and I feel like I'm dashing through some of them.
Yeah. So the trick is when your energy is running low. So when I was playing this, I found it very difficult to keep track of my energy.
I think that's the problem, and also it doesn't help that the energy bar is light blue and white. So you've actually got to look at it quite hard to see what's going on. It would be a lot more sensible if there was some sort of indication on your block of what your energy status was.
But then so they're the factors that affect the difficulty value itself, and then in turn the difficulty value affects the maximum number of enemies that are going to spawn in the next round, the time between the spawns, and apparently that's exponentially linked as well. So the higher the difficulty level, sort of the much shorter periods of respite you've got between waves, so the patrolling enemies get faster. The chasing enemies also get faster and have a sort of their sort of sense range, I guess. Sort of the one at which they'll start directly chasing you increases. And
you just lost 2 lives.
Yeah.
And the speed of bullets and interval between shots also decreases. The energy bar usage
is very hard.
You don't know if you're
time the dash, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. The energy level is affected by the difficulty as well, which I'm not sure how I feel about. It feels like that should be constant, so that you can learn how much energy you've got and make the most use of it. So they say again that's exponentially linked to the difficulty, but it doesn't actually say whether at harder difficulties we give you more energy to reward you for getting this far, or whether that's just another thing to make it even harder.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through the various bits then. So quality. So I mean, we obviously got a bit of a bug here in the.
So other than the sort of crash to desktop, I mean it's all right. It seems to control okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether the dash is. I haven't been playing it long enough really. It takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
So the very first time I was playing, I was getting killed a lot because I was just mistiming the dash. Did it then?
So you can hold the dash down. It's not like a sort of tap to dash.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that. Oh, well, that's a lot easier.
I didn't know that either.
There you go then.
Well, there you are. Okay.
So I feel like that's a problem with the controls.
Yeah. No, I was basically thought, well, the dash is really short, so
I say remember it's a hunter power, not a dash.
What is a hunter power? That doesn't narrow it down.
It means you can kill.
it's like a dash, but you hold it down.
And what's that got to do with the Eldar and Space Marines or whatever?
Yeah, that's fine. If they want to be inspired by Warhammer, go for it. Right, where are we?
So the AI over there seems to be getting a little bit stuck. So I think it's the blue ones sort of.
So
The blue ones sort of have a sense range and will sort of sprint towards you when they see you. The red ones obviously shoot at you when you're near
so
enough.
I've run out of. Oh,
Oh dear.
um,
So I played this in the Expo. I think there may have been one crash in the Expo, but not quite this many. So it might be just the web build.
I mean, minus that, it is quite playable once you know how the dash works.
Yeah.
Well, once you know it's not a dash. That makes a tremendous difference. All right. Okay. So, how's this going? Okay. So, yeah. In terms of quality, is this?
So in terms of quality, like it's
Oh,
nice. Other than this crash, it's put together quite well. Again, it's a really simplistic visual style, but one that works quite well.
Yeah.
I almost think that maybe sort of having sort of pixelated obstacles clashes a little bit with the sort of very simple geometric thing they've got going on.
Yeah.
But the sort of overall pixely style and the sort of the music goes really well with it. What was this? Totally crashed.
I think it's totally killed Safari. So
Okay.
I'm gonna. Let's have that. Go.
In terms of the difficulty, I mean, it sounds like they're modelling a number of different factors. It's a bit of a shame that, again, it feeds into a single difficulty number. So they talk about modelling the types of enemies you kill, and it's not clear to me from their game notes whether that feeds into the overall difficulty number or whether they have separate ones for each of those enemies. And if they've got separate ones for each of the enemies, then that is a more complex system and more worthwhile. So certainly, I mean, obviously, spawning more enemies as you sort of prove that you're better at it is a sensible thing to do because it gives you more opportunity for scoring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the fact that they will also lower the difficulty if you haven't killed 10% of the next wave. I think that's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that energy. You run out of energy and you don't notice.
You really need some feedback on your thing. I mean, obviously you slow down a bit, but it'd be nice if you flashed blue when you were out of energy or something.
You need an energy meter on
just
your
directly
block.
above your.
You need to see it all the time because you are staring at that block in the middle of the screen. Oh, that's exciting.
It seems a bit weird. You can push them. I'm not sure why that is.
When you're not dashing, if you knock into them, you lose a life. But then they just spiral away.
Right.
Ooh, yeah, it's very easy to be dashing through a load of them and then just run out of. Yeah. Okay. So. So in terms of the score, then, so it is kind of working for. It's interesting. What it is doing is I am concentrating on playing it. So it obviously is quite challenging. So in overall, then, what do we think? So I mean, again, I think kind of in terms of the playability and the quality of the game, we said it was good. The adaptive difficulty engine.
It's recording a number of different things.
Crushing them down to a single difficulty, which is a bit of a shame, but then using that quite effectively within the game. And then in terms of the meaningfulness for this particular type of game,
I mean, the better you're doing, the more enemies it spawns, the more opportunity you have for scoring.
So there is a relationship. So I think it's working quite well.
My big problem with it is that the fact that energy is tied to difficulty. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's something that you cannot rely on and don't learn.
How is it tied to the regen?
So let me just the energy bar. the time to restore energy and the speed of usage both depend on. So the speed at which it empties and refills is tied to difficulty.
Isn't it it empties quicker? The
But
harder
it doesn't
gets,
say, it just says it's tied to it
and it
exponentially.
regens slower.
Possibly.
That's like double difficulty.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a bit unfortunate.
Or again, the problem is it changes and there's not a lot of feedback on how that's changing.
Yeah,
Because it could be that it's actually giving us more energy to play with at higher difficulty levels. I suspect not.
I think in terms of making this playable, I think it's amazing that the single biggest problem is that you're not aware of what your energy state is.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a really minor thing, but it has an absolutely colossal impact on the game.
Because the entire game is based around managing that energy, right?
Yes.
Because that's the only way you can kill things.
So the only way, and also a little glance up the top left doesn't actually help you very much because it's very light blue on white.
And also because it's changing.
Yeah. So you don't learn that you can kind of dash a certain distance before you run out. Yeah, that's problematic, isn't
Why does it seem like some things get stuck in those weird... Are those spawning points? Those pillars look like snakes.
Also, yeah. Okay, so I think it could do with some tweaking around some of those relationships, but in principle, it's not far off, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on to the next one?
Okay, so this next game is Block Breaker.
Block Breaker. So it's hopefully another breakout version. Let's have a look.
Ooh, press F1.
Go on, I'll let Max go with this one. Press space to begin, A and D to move.
Oh, it's so slow.
It is quite slow. It'll take you a while to get used to it. There we are.
Okay, so we've got some power-ups. Let's...
Paddle size boost time.
Oh.
So some of those power-ups are bad power-ups, or is it just a temporary one?
I don't know.
So, I'm not sure what that does.
So to be fair, we did skip the control screen.
That's bigger.
Oh no, so it's time limited, it says at the bottom.
Yeah, so you've got sort of 10 seconds left of a big paddle. There we go. I'm not sure what that one does.
I think it makes the controls... No, it
makes the
reduces
ball-
it.
Or makes them all bigger.
But then it
So-
also resets paddle size.
Yeah. But again, that's quite common. So you've only got one thing active at once.
So every time you break 9 blocks without dying, the ball gets faster. It gets faster when you completely clear the screen, and it increases faster still if you cleared it without dying at all. And it decreases.
Oh, yep.
Told you could do that.
It decreases when you die as well.
Okay.
So actually, yeah, that did noticeably get faster.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a shame. I presume this is now the next level. So it's a bit of a shame there's not different patterns that they've implemented. I wouldn't expect many, but maybe 2 or 3 different screens of stuff.
Yeah, even just like 3 that rotate.
Yeah.
I don't like how... I thought that was like extra score, but it just reset my paddle size. Could be here a while.
So you do see the paddle moves slowly.
It does. Okay, so your bonus also is tied to the score. Tied to the difficulty. So the faster the ball is going, the higher score you get.
Okay. So
So I don't know if that's sort of when you sort of like flick the paddle and make the ball move faster that way, or if it's just a case of when at high difficulties it increases.
So the higher difficulty ball speed goes up, and then the faster the ball is going, the more score.
I don't want these ones.
Don't you? So this says score plus.
Yeah, but I'd rather have a massive paddle.
Well, presumably, does that reset your paddle or not?
It does, so I can only have one power up.
Okay. Even if it's a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
You died.
What?
There they come. So it just takes a little while to come back in. So the thing that changes is the ball speed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was the thing that it was looking at? Was
basically every 9 blocks you clear, it gets faster. If you complete the level, it gets faster. And if you complete the level without dying, it gets even faster.
Okay.
And if you miss a ball,
So every 9 blocks you clear, it gets faster.
Oh no.
Every level you clear, it gets faster. And what was the other one, sorry?
if you manage to complete the entire level without dying.
So the interesting thing about that is the first 2 are just natural consequences of playing the level. So everybody...
Sorry, 9 blocks without dying.
Oh, without dying, okay. So 9 blocks in a row. So it speeds it up. Yeah. So in terms of the quality, it's very basic.
That's it.
But
It's simple.
fine.
See,
but
that
it's
sped up so much.
It did.
It hurt me. It was,
You sound really aggrieved.
well,
That didn't just hurt. It hurt you emotionally.
then I lose a life, and I feel like I'm being punished for doing well.
Yeah. Was that presumably was also a sudden thing? It's like there's no kind of reward for it. Yeah. So I mean, I don't mind it being a simple looking game, and I don't mind it being a basic breakout game. I think that's absolutely fine.
I say it'd be nicer if there was more sort of difference between the levels.
A little bit of variety between levels, but then
Again, a little bit of variety between the blocks as well.
Yeah,
So blue ones take 2 hits, for example, or something like that.
So interestingly, we had another breakout version
Earlier in the
video
series, yeah.
where there was a variety in the blocks, but there were no power ups. So it's kind of it's about giving you as a designer something to actually grab hold of and adapt as you play. So by only having,
Not to mention that was an interesting bounce. Not to mention giving the player something to prove that they're more skillful.
yes,
So, for example, if the shape of the level was different, we could try and skillfully get the ball to sort of bounce along the top row or whatever.
just to try and get into certain routes. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so we're still sort of demonstrating our skill by accurately predicting where the ball is going. So
I think the quality-wise is absolutely fine. It could do with a little bit more depth and perhaps a little bit more breadth in terms of the kind of the difference between levels, but otherwise I think it's perfectly reasonable. So in terms of the adaptation, it clearly works. You're clearly seeing it get faster, and
again, it's just a bit simple. Like they could be modelling more things, particularly because they've got these power-ups.
Yeah.
So they don't mention
power-ups to play with. They might have block types to play with.
So the interesting thing is, in the game notes, they don't actually mention how the power-ups are affected by the difficulty at all.
Yeah. Which makes
it feels like you've got a lot of sort of extra life power-ups in one go.
Yeah.
But that might have just been coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so adaptivity is there. It works. Maybe a bit simple. And in terms of meaningfulness, so I think we said before that absolutely adaptive difficulty in a breakout style game can be very good, because otherwise you can end up with monotonous things with the ball bouncing around.
I say it's a very drastic speed up. It almost feels like they should have sort of lurked it a little bit so that it sort of
we'll give you a warning. I mean, I think if they made something of it, like there was a kind of a fanfare,
or even just waited for it to sort of it speeds up when it's going away from your paddle.
Yes.
So you sort of fire it off.
Yes.
Rather than it's sort of halfway to you and then suddenly speeds up.
Or giving you a sticky. So like you get the power up and you get a sticky paddle and then you relaunch the ball in your new mode. Oops. So it kind of
So it is worth bearing in mind. So we were talking about this game sort of being a little bit simple in terms of scope. I think this was made by one person, so that's something that we can take into account.
We can take that into account, yeah. But still, it works by linking the speed with the score. It makes it a meaningful thing to adapt. The adaptation is a little bit clunky for the reasons we said, but it's there.
It's got an impact on both, obviously, how this was very slow. Sort of how long you can carry on playing the game, but also in terms of the score as well. So at higher difficulties, presumably you get that multiplier that affects your score.
Yeah.
so you're incentivized to try and keep the difficulty high.
Okay, I think that's about it.
Okay,
I've got a feeling that is our
that's our
last game and last batch. So thank you very much for watching all of our videos for all 3 of these courseworks. If you haven't seen any of the ones for the previous expos that we ran one with tutorials and one with interactive narrative. Go and check them out. There's some really nice examples of games there. Thanks very much to all the students who put a lot of time and effort to make a really interesting set of games. And we will see you again next year. Thank you.